is tonight's session of Active Travel Cafe on the 10th of December 2024. We're featuring Dustin Carlino, who's going to talk us through some open source tools for transport planning. So those will be very useful. I think he's going to cover a range, including AB Streets and the latest developments of that, which he's been instrumental in. But other tools as well, which will be useful for different people. Very often we want to create visualizations or plans of new ideas of what our streets could look like to help us in our campaigns or planning. And it's great to have some open source ones, so we don't have to pay enormous license fees, particularly as campaigners. Sorry, Carlino, not Carlito. And then we've also got Mark Philpotts, our ranty highwayman, who is on for a session later, which will be quite a nice little roundup of things that have been happening over the year. And we will start off as ever by getting into our crowdsourced news. So who has got some things from around the country? Very quiet. Lucy.
Hi everyone, let me just put my camera on. I just wanted to let you all know that today we launched 2 short videos that explain healthy streets in 3 minutes. So those of you who are interested in healthy streets, I'm going to put the links to them in the chat, so anyone who wants to have a look at them later on, not while this is going on, can have a little look. But it summarizes the concept very quickly in a simple illustration, which hopefully will be really useful for you in your work.
Okay, that's great, Lucy. I think a lot of us will know what healthy streets is as a concept, and lots of supporters here. So having those will be a really useful resource. Thanks very much. Chris from Kirklees.
Hey, yeah, a couple of weeks ago I came on and ranted a bit about the opinions of some of the officers in our council. Today I want to celebrate a tiny victory that they've actually changed the design on the cycle lane that was going to be put in from 1.2 meters to 2 meters wide. We were just saying last week as a group that we feel like we're getting nowhere, and it's like we're making a lot of effort for nothing, but we've finally got a small but a win from it, so we're really glad about that.
That's good. Always good to hear of a win. Roxanne from Cambridge, how are you?
Hi Robin, I'm great today. 2 pieces of news. I've popped a link in the chat. So the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Cycling and Walking has launched the inquiry to identify barriers to wider participation. So social justice issues related to active travel in the UK. And the deadline is the 16th of December, I believe. So anyone who would like to contribute to that inquiry, please take a look. Raise awareness of it. I think it will be very important. And other news, just because I'm happy, CamCycle raised £30,000 this week for cycle campaigning through our Christmas challenge. So I'll pop a link in there for anyone who's interested in how we went about it. But that's an absolute record for us for our Christmas campaign, and we are over the moon. And anyone here who contributed to that campaign, either through donations, shares, comments, help, anything, thank you so much. It means a huge amount to us, so thanks.
That's terrific. I haven't kept tabs on how well Cyclops in Oxford have done. We normally have a little race, and Cambridge normally win, but that's all good and terrific. The other little bit of parliamentary news was there was there is planned a debate on cycling in rural areas this afternoon, which was triggered, whatever you do to get a debate, by one of the Oxfordshire Lib Dem MPs, and they asked me for some content, some kind of rural wins for that. So that's good. Hopefully that will raise the issue and get a bit of support in the House of Commons. So let's move on. Mark from Brighton. Everyone enjoyed your talk last week on bike share.
Thank you, and I've now sent you the PDF, so you can.
Yep, we've got those.
My news is actually from Sheffield. If there's anyone here from Sheffield and it feels that I'm stealing their thunder, fine, I won't, let them take it. But the West Bar roundabout, which is the second or possibly the second Dutch style roundabout after Fendon Road, as I opened in Sheffield yesterday, we advised on the design and tweaked a few things which we thought would lead to problems based on the experience we've built up over many years looking at Fendon Road, which we're still doing actually. And apparently it went down really well, and everyone thinks it's a really good thing. So yes, Wookie's just posted that, but yeah, it was my colleague Steve. The only complaint I've got is that we were slightly miffed not to have got invited to the formal launch with Ed Clancy. But there you go.
Okay, that's
so if anyone is from Sheffield, I'd be really interested to hear how it's actually going down there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the local newspaper with van drivers complaining. It wouldn't be a proper Dutch roundabout if it wasn't.
No, the news headline says launched without a hitch.
Oh, well, that's great. That's terrific. Tim Morton. Oh, you're on mute, Tim.
Happy Christmas, everybody. Just to say, Leicester runs these joyful rides around town with history rides and so on. Tomorrow night, it's the ride around and look at the lights, and there are 60 people booked on it. It's fabulous. And then we've got 2 Santa rides at our local cycle circuit next week. And in personal news, I think I might have a job as a trainee bikeability instructor starting in the new year, 2 days a week.
Gosh.
Can I get up at that time of the morning regularly? I don't know.
For cycling, I'm sure you can do it, Tim. It's active travel. It's terrific. Nice hat. Excellent. Ruth, how are things in Chiswick?
Hello. Oh, very quiet, but Cycleway 9, which is so fabulous. The next bit is going to happen, but it's not going to happen until 2026. So probably the bit to Hounslow probably won't happen until 2030, by which time I'll be about 100. But I just wanted to ask Mark, as he's here, there's been a comment on one of the chats that I'm on about the Dutch roundabout in Sheffield, which is that it doesn't join up to much, so therefore might not get used so much, and therefore the antis would say, well, there we are, we spent all that money, and yet it doesn't get used as much. So I just wondered, is that just people moaning, or is there some truth in it? Is that allowed to ask?
Do you want me to respond, Robin? I'm happy to reply.
In brief, yes. Yep.
Yeah, brief. Yes, the whole route that it's part of isn't all built, but for a decent amount of, it's the crossing of the ring road. There's a decent amount of section that's built. I mean, if you waited for everything to be built at the same time, you'd never build it. So you have to build some things in sensible stages. And there was a councillor saying this will financially benefit central Sheffield. I think that's part of the broader public realm works it's part of, rather than the actual roundabout per se. But it's all positive, and I'm about to put another link in as well.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm from Sheffield, so I'm very pleased to hear it.
That's good. I guess you've got to build one part of a network first. It's always going to be one part. Good. Adam.
This one's more of a, I just posted I'll post it again because why not, which is the image of all of the talks that we've had with a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'd like to just say that this would be nothing without all of you turning up. I know that I'm part of the team that makes this happen and makes it look very smooth, hopefully. But I would argue that without everybody else that turns up on a weekly basis and joins in and gives us once in a while, chips in with a little bit of money, this forum wouldn't exist. And it is. And when you look at what that is, that image, and the number of talks and the subjects we've gone through over this year alone, it is a phenomenal achievement for everybody here. And I just like to say applause to everybody. Thank you so much for everything you do. It is really important to us, and it's just great. Anyway, love you loads. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and leave you to it.
That's a terrific thought, Adam. And on the organising team, we are all constantly amazed that we keep finding new people to talk about new things, and sometimes previous speakers to talk about new things. and the world of active travel is big and ever expanding and ever evolving, and it's a wonderful world.
I just one last thing, Dustin. So just be aware. I know when we get your little, you'll be on there, but yeah. But we need
There's
to
a
talk
little
first,
box in
and
the
then
admin calendar for you. Right. No more hands up, so I think that's time. That's Dustin's cue. So, Dustin, if you fire up your presentation, and we'll learn a bit about transport planning tools. Oh, James Avery has a hand up. I can't see it, but sorry, James. He's put hand up in the chat. No? Not going to say anything. No? Okay. Carry on, Dustin.
All right, yeah, just getting set up. I'm assuming this is showing up.
It looks like it's on the way. Yep, there it is.
Cool. Hi, I'm Dustin, and super happy to be here. I think an early version of this was previously Ideas with Beers, and one of those talks sort of inspired one of these projects, and so really pleased to be speaking today. Thanks for the invitation. I'm a software engineer, and I guess my mission is generally to build tools to help a broad range of groups communicate together better, to sort of build active travel and other infrastructure. I'm working at the Alan Turing Institute, and I'm on secondment to Active Travel England, but I'm sort of presenting not on behalf of any of those organizations. I'm just sort of speaking as myself. And yeah, I want to show you a few different open source tools that I work on, some of which might be helpful. They're kind of all at a different range of like working or early prototypes, but I'll try to show a mix and tell you what they're useful for. So the first is this tool that helps you design low traffic neighborhoods, and I'll kind of show you what that means in a minute. I think it was like 2 years ago, I attended some public consultations in Bristol City Council and sort of worked with the council there on the East Livable, I can't speak tonight, on the East Bristol Livable Neighborhood consultation. And so this is a picture of an in-person workshop where they had a nice map of the area, and people were sort of putting down design tokens and sticky notes, and then also using an earlier version of this tool to sort of understand the area better. So just to kind of jump in and show you what this thing does, you can load up any area of the world and then draw a boundary around a neighborhood. So here we're sort of in New Brighton, just west of Liverpool. And I'll just quickly select an area bounded on all sides by major roads, or I don't know, you can sort of adjust the boundary to whatever you want. The point is, within here, you don't want any through traffic. And so after you sort of confirm this area, you see it drawn in different colored cells. So you have a lot of little cul-de-sacs where you just kind of have these like individual streets kind of coming in. You can't connect to anything, but then you have this large blue area where it's possible to sort of go all the way north to south and cut through the middle of this area, or also east to west. And so depending on how you draw the boundary, the assumption is everything inside, you don't really want there to be a lot of through traffic. And so what you can do is drop down different types of modal filters and click a road and sort of see what happens. So if I want to stop the north-south traffic and I put something here, it doesn't do very much good because there's still a parallel route here, and you can kind of see the color changed a bit. And if I put a second one, it still doesn't do the trick. Now it just sort of pushes everybody to go this way. But if I put a third, then it does sort of split the area into two pieces, and it's no longer possible to go all the way north and south. That's really the core of what this tool does. There's also sort of a way to understand, like for the remaining roads, which ones are used the most by people trying to possibly get through the area. There's a way to kind of explore that, and then you can also sort of see how the route changes after making these changes. And so if I find where it's put the other, yeah, so if we sort of calculate a route going from north to south and see if it changes, the blue is after these changes, and the red is before. So this is just a way of saying, like, after you do an LTN, if people complain it's impossible to, like, now my short trip is very long, you can kind of show, well, here's the alternate route you might take and about how long it might be. So as a way to kind of calm people down and quickly option your designs for that. The second tool is called Plan Your Active Travel Schemes, and it's a piece of work that I've been building with Active Travel England. At first, it sort of had internal use, but we've just sort of launched a public beta. It's very, very fresh. Like there still might be some issues with it, but it's still something that you can start to use. And so there's sort of two pieces of it. One of it is a tool that lets you quickly sketch stuff on a map and describe it, and that's sort of all it does. This is an example of how it looks. So you can sort of load up a file, and I've already drawn a route in an area, but I'll start a new route, and you can just sort of click on the map and quickly snap stuff to roads, or also kind of go freehand if you want to like draw a new bridge or something like that. And then after you draw this, you can fill out some information about it, sort of attach a freeform text description, and yes, it's just a quick way to draw things on maps. But what's cool about it is after you do some of these, you can then open up this other piece called the scheme browser, and this is a map that's got just a bunch of different things on it that you can sort of see alongside your sketches. And so if I kind of import all of the sketches that I've made, looks like I was doing some tests earlier here, but you'll see the stuff that we just drew in Oxford. And then we have about like 20 different layers of other things that we pull in from different data sources. And so, for example, we can take a look at like existing cycle paths from OpenStreetMap. We could look at, we've got a layer for bus stops where the color of these dots is sort of based on how frequently buses appear. And so like, for example, here we've got one where during the busiest hour, 20 buses sort of arrive at this one stop. And so that might inform some kind of like bus stop bypass, bus stop border decision that you make. We've got different boundaries. We have indices of multiple deprivation and some relevant layers of the census in case you want to sort of relate things to households with the car. And yeah, just a bunch of other layers to kind of explore all in one place. If you are using this and you have ideas for other layers that you want to see here, please do email and let me know what to add. We're just trying to make this useful for a bunch of different purposes internally and externally. The next tool I'll show is, if you're familiar with the propensity to cycle tool, I've been working with Robin Lovelace, one of the original authors of that, on sort of the next generation of it. It's still not quite ready to go, but you can start to play with some of the outputs from it. So kind of recreating using sort of 2011 census data about home to work trips, which is like extremely limited in a bunch of ways. We can calculate something similar to the original PCT, which is kind of showing the thicker lines are roads where if people were going to cycle, assuming that like the roads were sort of safe or not, the thicker lines are more important as places people want to go. And then the color scheme kind of shows you a level of traffic stress where green is like green and blue are pretty low stress, but the other colors are sort of high stress. And so this is just like a quick way to kind of explore output in a large area. You can also sort of interactively do this if you wanted to say like, look at how everybody in an area would cycle to a local hospital or a sports center. You can go do that. So if sort of as I drag this pin around, it's like quickly calculating a trip from sort of every building in the area to this one point. And again, like the thicker lines have more people flowing on it, and the coloring kind of tells you which way they go. And there's also ways to sort of change the style of or sort of the way that people route. So this is like right now kind of a direct route. We could also say switch it to like a weight per level of traffic stress. And I think actually it's a better example, get people to sort of follow like quiet routes by default. So you can sort of use this tool to explore existing patterns, but also maybe find like cases where you have something that almost could be a quiet way option off a main road if you just had a few fixes. Look for like thick lines that are red, that are short and maybe possible to fix. The next thing, I'll just kind of leave this animation up and not show it live. This is completely just like a silly arcade game that is made it a couple of years ago with some friends to explore the idea of 15-minute neighborhoods when they were sort of getting talked about quite a lot. So in the game, you ride around on a bike and deliver presents to houses. The higher density houses, you get more points. The low density ones, you only get 1 point at a time. And the problem is you run out of your blood sugar gets low over time, and so you have to refuel from any shop that sells food or groceries or things like that. And so this game was sort of set in Seattle, where I was living a couple of years ago, and some neighborhoods there are very sort of like residential, and there's no shops around, and so the game was meant to be a very like tongue-in-cheek way of exploring land use patterns. And so yeah, like feel free to use this either to educate your skeptical friend about 15-minute neighborhoods or just sort of for fun. The next bit is a sort of in-progress piece of work, extremely early, but it's meant to be a network planning tool. And so I'll just kind of import existing areas in Edinburgh where the different colored lines are sort of different degrees of cycle infrastructure. And after drawing a network on or importing a network or sort of like drawing the routes that you might want, we can evaluate a bunch of different metrics. And so kind of after importing this initial area, some of the metrics that we care about, this should update in a minute. For example, we have like only 30% coverage of GPs in hospitals. And so to kind of enable this layer, you'll see purple dots. Let's find a good example. This purple dot is sort of connected to the network because this blue line is like a route on low stress streets to somewhere on the network that I've drawn. But you'll see also plenty of red ones where there's no way to sort of get from, let's try here. You can see this hospital kind of right on an A road. And so like from the hospital, it's like you can only reach the A road, which is sort of red. And so we need to add another route along here and kind of try to connect something close to the hospital. And after we do that and sort of pick an infrastructure type and recalculate the GPU route, this one should turn purple in a few seconds, or maybe not. Yeah, because we have to get exactly that bit of road. But anyway, when this thing is a bit more built out, which should be in a few months, the idea is you draw routes on a map and then quickly evaluate them against a bunch of different metrics, and hopefully interactively see which metrics are not doing well. And then the tool is meant to kind of guide you to fix things and connect more parts of the network. And yeah, it's just a way of quickly doing network planning. And we'll see where that project goes. Some other things that I won't show, but I will link to and kind of give you a link to the slides. I guess like the last one is possibly a cool thing for figuring out pinch points. And so the idea is after you've sort of drawn a route somewhere, if you then use something like street mix and kind of figure out that for that particular route, you need like 15 meters or 20 meters in width to build the piece of segregated infrastructure, you want to know, like, are there points along that route where, like, physically between building to building or sort of between the like in the public right of way, do you actually have that 20 meters you need? And so all this tool does is like take the line that you've drawn and sort of measure the width against a different source and sort of tell you pinch points that you might find along it. And so this could hopefully be a quick way of optioneering and figuring out places where you just won't be able to support a certain type of infrastructure. So maybe you should consider a different type or consider a different route. And yeah, I guess that was a very, very quick whirlwind tour of tools that I work on. All of these are totally open source. If you want to help work on these or tell me what they should be doing or help co-design them, then just get in touch. They're all completely free to use, and my goal is for them to be sort of as easy to use as possible. So please do try them out and let me know what works and what doesn't work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. That was terrific. The one thing I didn't catch was the name of the network planning one that you were demonstrating on Edinburgh.
It's called Network Planning Workspace. I didn't have a link to that one because it's very much under heavy development. If you wait a few months, there'll be something stable that I'd be happy for people to use. But right now it's just changing a little bit too much to release.
Okay, that's fair enough. Right. Well, we've got a few questions coming in. There's one that's there's a system where you can upvote the questions. So the one that's got a few votes already is whether you've developed a tool, or you know of one, for defining a circulation plan?
So my understanding of circulation plans is they're basically just LTNs kind of applied to a large city center. So I think you could use the same tool for that, just like draw the boundary around the entire area you care about, and then place the filters and get the colored cells to be the different sectors of the circulation. But I'm not sure. Maybe they're actually different than LTNs in a way that this tool wouldn't work. I'd be
Yes,
happy to. Yeah.
yeah, I think I kind of think you're right. It'd be interesting to experiment with that tool on a city size area and see what it does. Yeah, I mean, some of them obviously have some traffic is allowed and some is permitted, but you're probably basically right, and it's worth an experiment for somebody to have a go. And on the LTN tool, does that take into account model traffic level changes? Does it model traffic levels in its route calculations, or does it calculate route time calculations when it does the rerouting? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
How sophisticated is that rerouting?
It's not very sophisticated because there's not really granular data on traffic counts at the level that's required. So the way it works is once you draw the perimeter of your area, it's just taking every entrance and exit of that neighborhood and then saying like, what's the fastest way to get between every pair of entrances and exits. And so that's why as you draw different filters and sort of redirect the traffic flow, you'll see different routes show up as more likely. And there's a tool, there's a piece of the tool that lets you like explore that in detail to sort of debunk the confusion and see like, here are the 30 remaining ways that you can sort of like cross a particular street. If anybody has a source of like a good source of like public origin destination data that's like more recent than the 2011 census, it would be possible to plug that into the tool and kind of get the bigger picture. After you make some changes in a few neighborhoods, you could sort of see like the whole area impact. What's the area outside that neighborhood just by plugging in the origin destination data and kind of like looking at before after times. But it's not doing any sophisticated traffic modeling. It's just sort of like doing a shortest path for a driver without like knowing about congestion on main roads and stuff like that.
Okay. So you mentioned you used the 2011 data. Why not 2021 for OD? I can understand why you don't use it for travel habits because obviously pandemic, but not using it for.
Honestly, I maybe should. It's been a while since I've dug into some of the OD pieces. I think I might have like a pending backlog item to like try the new 2021 census data.
Right.
But there might have been some problem last time I tried that. I just honestly I've forgotten.
I mean, if the answer is there's only one of me at the time, that's fair enough. So Mark has a hand up, and so
yeah, I've got to go in a minute.
Question direct from Mark.
I've got to go in a minute. Actually, it was on two things, and it was on the 2021 stuff. So I've been doing thorough Excel CWIP, and I have been using the 2021 origin and destination data. It's MSOA level, so it's larger blocks, but I think that was the 2011 one as well. So it is, Dustin, it is there. I'm happy to talk offline about that generally.
Okay, great. Yeah.
What I wanted to do was on the LTN tool, one of the things that seems to be missing is the physical boundaries seem to get picked up very poorly. So hills, I was looking at the East Oxford stuff, so stuff around Headington and the Radcliffe Hospital where there are green spaces which you could cross or not cross with paths. So it takes the highway network as a given, if you like, and only the highway network as a given, and doesn't sort of say if you added an extra path across this green space here, it would create that, or if you or if this hill, it sort of just takes that as the roads and nothing else. So I was wondering about how you can you paint in boundaries like hills, rivers, stuff like that.
Is this for like drawing the perimeter of your neighborhood in the first place?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yes. In like the next month, I hope to have that fixed. There's an experimental new piece that also looks at like railway lines and waterways and things like that, and lets you like snap to sort of any bits of barriers that you want. And in cases where the snapping gets it wrong, you can just sort of like freehand trace around the edge of it. But that feature still needs a bit more work. Hoping to have it finished before Christmas.
Right. That's really good. Good. So where should we go next? So let's go to this one. So I mean, I think the tools are great. It's a question about have people been using these tools for advocacy? I think the answer is yes. Have you collected any examples of that?
I only have a few offhand examples. So like the Bristol City Council consultation is sort of like the best use of that from or I guess consultation, not quite advocacy perspective. There's some people in France from the OpenStreetMap community, I think also in Germany, that have used some of these tools more from like the cycle campaigning side. Beyond that, I'm aware of a lot of like consultant groups and councils sort of using the LTN tool in different forms, but I think it's been difficult to sort of collect like examples of the tools being used and case studies and things like that. That's something that I'm still trying to figure out how to do better.
Right. And then Wolf Furrow from Hailing has a brilliant idea. Can we get a national LC Whip app that joins up all the LC Whips into one integrated system, but then dynamically allows public modelling and development options and measures progress, like Cyclescape on steroids?
That sounds like a 2025 scoped project, but something like that is definitely on my mind. So yeah, that's a cool idea. I'd like to like to chat about that more. So please email.
Yeah. So I mean, in Oxfordshire, you may know we have a strategic active travel network, which is a county-wide LC Whip. It doesn't actually. It's actually a bit different to what that describes, because it's the bit between the towns, and then we have LC Whips within the towns. So it's the bit that joins it up. But what Wilf is describing is a map that includes all of the LC Whips, and presumably anything that joins them up, and gradually builds up a whole national picture of what Finnish could look like, which would be spectacular. Cameron and Wookie have a couple of linked questions. So one is this spare time work, or are you getting funding? And then the other is about updates. So as updates, how do we find out about updates? And when they're released?
So I guess the first question, first sort of from 2018 to 2021, I was developing some of these tools and sort of predecessors to these tools on my kind of full time on my own budget. And then in 2021, I joined the Alan Turing Institute and have been sort of funded by them since then, and joined Active Travel England on secondment, I think about a year after that. So some of these are sort of partially funded through that. The second question about updates is also something I'm trying to kind of fix before Christmas. I need to like start one website that kind of describes all of the tools and has like recent updates and things like that. Right now it's just chaos. You discover the updates but trying to get better at that.
Yes, I understand just what you mean. Okay, well, we'll look out for that. I mean, you're always welcome to come here and give us a bit of news on an update, and that will spread throughout the community. Any other questions for Dustin? Because that was a really terrific session. I thought I am very keen to find some time to use some of these tools. Ruth, yes, we can have a couple of live questions. You've got your hand up.
Thank you. Well, I just noticed in the chat that Sally, I hope she doesn't mind me speaking on her behalf, mentioned that a lot of routes aren't commuting routes. So those of us who are retired, we just use cycling as utility, and we tend not to use Strava or any of those other things. So how are you picking up those important routes, especially for women with children, doctor's appointments, visiting, shopping, blah, 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 blah?
Right. That's a big reason why I kind of don't like to use origin destination data as a central piece of the tools that I build, because the only high quality data that's open is sort of the commuting routes. for all of the other trip purposes, I think the best that I'm aware of is modeling approaches where you sort of look at the census data about where people live, and then you look for points of interest that might fulfill other trip purposes and sort of half blindly make up trips that people are likely to take. But I think like calibrating the results of that is quite hard. There's it's sort of beyond my area of knowledge. I'm kind of relying on other research projects that try to answer that. But if anybody knows like one good approach and one good source of that data, I'd love to just plug it in.
I mean, I'm sorry, just to briefly give you an example. Yesterday, I cycled to King's Cross and back from Chiswick. I know this is a London thing, but because I don't do that very often, I'm not a commuter, I'm retired. For me, it was hell. It was so difficult because trying to stitch up all the routes and bits together, and occasionally you'd get a quiet way route and then it disappeared. And it's those things that are the issue. And it's why often the anti people will say, well, look, these routes are not used outside peak commuting hours because no one's using them during the day. And that the reason that people aren't using them during the day is because they simply can't find them, or they're too nervous, or they just can't be asked, frankly. It's quite hard work. I'm just pointing this out.
Yes, definitely aware it's a problem. In terms of like getting better data about where people are traveling for non-commuting purposes, like that part is hard. I don't have an answer there. It's sort of beyond the scope of the kind of thing that I do, but I do know people in the research community working on this kind of problem. And as for like how incoherent routes are, that is something that some of these tools are starting to like look at that. But yeah, I have no solutions yet.
So, oh, you muted, Ruth.
I suppose the argument that we all must be using therefore is that I mean, I cycle in Holland a lot, as a lot of people know, and I never don't have a safe space to cycle, not anywhere.
Yeah.
And that is the difficulty that we have here, which is that connectivity is a main problem, and it is why commuters will commute by bike, and the rest of us will only do it if we're bloody minded enough, or, you know.
Yeah, mostly that.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to say that, Robin.
Adam.
Yeah, because these are all open source tools that we can all contribute to, which is, do pull requests, GitHub, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, that's good for like software engineering, but also the other side of it, which is a lot of these are when are they going to be officially released? And then a second one was, you mentioned StreetMix very briefly, which I've used before. And if you haven't used it, it's a very good profiling tool for a cross section of a road. Are there other ones out there that you're aware of, like StreetMix, that you've kind of stumbled across and gone, hey, this is quite nice? Yeah, and just, yeah.
Right. I guess the first question, one of the tools that I showed, the Plan Your Active Travel Schemes, is sort of an official Active Travel England project. And it is like on the verge of a public beta launch. So that's kind of the first official thing. The rest of the tools are all things I've sort of independently-ish developed with support from other organizations. I can't say yet when there will be like an official version of them. But of course, that's always something that I'm trying to do from my side to kind of get more official support for building these things out. But I don't have an answer for that yet. Then sorry, can you say your second question again?
It was more like you mentioned StreetMix, which I've used before and discovered by accident, and it's very, very useful. But have you found any other types of those tools online that you've gone, hey, this is actually, I also find this to be kind of inspirational, you have used it?
The only one that offhand I'm thinking of is called 3D Street, and it's sort of based on StreetMix. It lets you import after you draw something in StreetMix, you can then create a 3D scene from it and bring in kind of the Google satellite view and like visualize a change to a street against the nice 3D tiles. Offhand, there's not other things, but I'll think about that. And yeah, it'd be good to like compile a list of these sort of resources.
Okay. So Forrest Baum from the US says, as these are open source, are there any specific areas that you could use help with?
Always, I guess. One of the best things is just sort of like try to use the tool for your particular use case, and then like write up your experience of it. Like describe the stuff that went well, and then describe the stuff particularly that doesn't go well, and that can sort of help me figure out what the tool should be doing differently. if you have experience with like cartography and making good visual design choices on a map, that's one of the things that I struggle with the most and would love help on. And if you're into software engineering and like want to work on the guts of any of these projects, they're quite fun. Feel free to get in touch, and I'd love to find pieces of project that I could collaborate with people on.
So your mention of the where do you get the data for those other trips reminds me of a bit of work I did with Richard Fairhurst, who, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's cycle.travel
Yes.
creator and also a really good cartographer. So we did, I did a bit of analysis, and we ended up looking at population by LSOA just for Oxfordshire, and then that looked at kind of travel propensity by distance, just using National Travel Survey data, and then the percentage of those journeys that were likely to be by cycle, again National Travel Survey, and then then we added some things in for travel hubs and things, railway stations, just a plug number instead of population. And then he threw that all through his cycle.travel routing engines. And we basically had a big matrix of everyone in every LSOA travelling to every other LSOA. What route might they take? How long was the distance? How likely were they to cycle? And that came up, and then added them all up on every route segment and came up with effectively a propensity to cycle based on that, which was quite interesting. It threw up a few routes that we didn't expect. And on the back of it, the council showed it to the council, and they got a housing developer to build a bit of shared pavement, which was only 2 meters wide because it was before LTM 120, but it actually got some infrastructure built, and has been used a few times since. So that was an interesting way of using the data.
It's good to know. I guess, yeah, that sort of thing is what I'm hoping OD2Net can kind of help with. But the missing piece there is the good origin destination data, especially when you sort of have to model from something besides commuting. And so, yeah,
yes, exactly. We were trying to get around that commuting piece, and we just used population. But we could, of course, used. I mean, there is schools data in the census, I think. So that's one thing. But you really want shops, and nobody goes to the bank anymore. But all those other uses, where do people go on those personal business trips? Anyway, that's a long and discussion, but not for today. Good. Right. Well, thank you very much, Dustin. Again, that was a really terrific overview of lots of things, and the notes on where to find those will be we will put in the Active Travel Cafe website for tonight's event, and obviously the video of you giving us the quick guided tour. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
We will, but don't go away, Dustin, because you, as it with everyone else, will enjoy Mark Philpotts' latest Good and the Bad and the Interesting Christmas edition. Take it away.
Right. Forgive me if there's been a bit of coughing. I'm just trying to get over whatever the hell is going on at the moment, but we'll see where we get to. And something a bit different tonight, something a bit easier for me to get through. But I'm sure we can find some good stuff, some bad stuff, and plenty of interesting stuff in just 12 slides tonight. So I can slow down a bit, Robin. Let's see where we get to. So this is essentially me going through my photos on my phone at the weekend, just before I went off the rails, trying to find something from each month to show you all. And luckily, even this month, I did find something. So we'll get to that in a few more slides. So let's start with Woodcock Street in Birmingham. One of the City Council's offices is over there on the right-hand side, where you can see that taxi. Just happened to come across this on a visit to the office there, and I thought, oh, here's a nice example of EV charging in the carriageway. This particular example has all the features, if you like. So there's the charge in the carriageway, and it is at carriageway level, which is important and I'll come back to that in a second. Nice little protecting island in the foreground here. You've got one side is for e-taxis and the other side is for general vehicles. The bit actually, which is even better about this, is probably one of very few I've seen, which is a little bit more accessible to everybody. So if you're maybe a wheelchair user trying to get into the road, to get up close to one of these charging pillars, especially where they've got an island around, would be quite difficult. So this one, and I'll be advised by those that would need that piece of assistance to tell me if they think this is good or not. But to me, this looked quite useful that you can actually get out the vehicles, you can transfer to your wheelchair, and then get round to the front of the vehicle or the back, depending which way you are, and actually physically get up to the charging unit. So I thought that was quite a good one to keep a record of. So February, a slightly relaxed evening in Manchester city centre. I guess this has got some good and bad. I mean, it's good that we've got this nice little parallel crossing running through the I forget which quarter it is now. Is it the northern quarter? Somebody can remind me from Manchester. But a couple of things. What on earth is going on with all these big concrete blocks? They are hostile vehicle mitigation, which I'm constantly whinging about. I think it may have changed since I took this back in February. But come on, folks, if we really have to put in this HVM stuff, let's try and make it a bit more accessible. I'm not a fan of how this is deployed more generally, but there you go. The security services know more than I do about the intricacies. But let's not dump stuff where people are trying to cycle through or walk through there or wheel through. And then the other thing which really, really annoys me about Greater Manchester is Transport Greater Manchester, who are the Signals Authority, their absolute obsession with centre islands. We don't do this in London. They don't do it in Birmingham. They don't do it in Coventry. But for some reason, the FGM love their islands. And the reason I don't like them is twofold. First, here's something for you to crash into as you're cycling, especially if it's a bit busier and it's tidal flow. And also, you've kind of completely restrained your capacity here. So if you can get 1 or 2 people side by side at the stop line, that's it. That's the maximum throughput you can have. So not very flexible as cycling grows in an area. So yeah, maybe come do some London style or some Birmingham style signal, please, Manchester, Greater Manchester. So Mark, I happened to be in Tavistock Square in Camden. I think that day was just a day out to get some fresh air, actually. But of course, I can't go looking at the sites without finding something going on and taking some photos of curbs. Would you expect anything less? Couple of interesting things here that Camden is essentially, or has been for quite some time, updating some cycle routes through the borough. I think this is Cycleway 50, if memory serves. But what they've done here is fairly neat and straightforward. They've done lots of surfacing work up to a certain level, and then they've come in, cut a little trench in, and they're now installing the curbs here. Nice standard units, which are a little bit more forgiving on the cycle side, unforgiving on the traffic side. Although personally, I don't think they're forgiving enough on the cycling side. But there you go. They're upgrading stuff that's been there in paints and wands and other things. Nice to see stuff being rolled out. So in April, my first trip to the Netherlands. And here we are. So let's get this right. We are in roughly in the southeast of Dordrecht, into what is a fairly newish neighbourhood. Go back to Google, the shops and houses on the left-hand side weren't there in 2020, or they're just being built. And what they've done in this particular location is there's no protected cycling infrastructure, but it's not really needed because it's filtered by these moving bollards, and they're generally there to help with a fairly express bus route into the city centre. So that was quite nice to see. The Dutch obviously investing in proper bollards, that you don't have to rely on people sneaking through cameras, and that feeling of safety remains all the time. As the year rolled on, I happened to be in Gordon Square in Westminster. I think this was me making a little diversion on the way to a meeting. And what they've done here, this is outside UCL, or one of UCL's buildings. piece of road which had been under hoarding for a very, very long time, some rebuilding of the adjacent building. And now it's kind of semi-permanent, that they've essentially put in a super filter here, like the entire section of street as a filter. And they've given some breakout space for the students. Bearing in mind this is May, it's not particularly warm then, plenty of people out there. It was even busier when I went past later in the summer. And just from cycling point of view, that buck you can see just behind the planters there, it's a nice little two-way cycle track that's been retained. Lots of nice planters, lots of seating. Behind where I took this, there's some more like picnic bench style seating, so lots of different types of seating, different people. And then a rather interesting seat pulled from the yellow lines that are no longer needed technically, but a bit of fun in the street. There might be a bit of debate about whether people may trip over them if they can't quite discern what they are. But it isn't affecting the footway. There is a proper defensible area of footway there. So I thought that was quite nice. So in June, I was up in, well, actually, this is a trip which ended up going through Hackney to Walden Forest, go and look at some of the earlier LGN with a former colleague. But we did have a look at the Lee Bridge roundabout. And the Lee Bridge roundabout is not that far from the Walden Forest boundary with Hackney. And what it has done is, with some other work, is now connected up the very famous Lee Bridge Road in Walden Forest into Hackney more properly. And it's an interesting reworking of a roundabout. It has a little mini bus station in the middle of the roundabout. So it couldn't have been completely rebuilt without lots of costs and issues with the bus operations. Can be a little bit slow to cross some of the arms if you get them wrong. So I think that could be dealt with some detection. But a nice example of a bit of a retrofit to an existing layout. Hasn't really affected motor traffic capacity, which is a bit of a proxy for bus operations in London at the moment. I think it's a fairly good roundabout scheme there. I'm less happy about what they've done between here and the Walden Forest boundary, which includes the worst piece of brand new asphalt I've seen in a very, very long time through the edge of the park. But that's a slide for a different evening. So something completely different. Here we are down in Dagenham in the Pearl, which is the Person Environment Activity Research Laboratory down in Dagenham on big part of an old industrial plot. And it's really hard to get across just how vast this room is. I mean, this is a big room. But here we go. Here's at least 4 buses parked in there with lots and lots of room to spare. As it happens, the experiment I was involved in didn't take place in here. It was actually get on the buses, lots of different buses with sunroof configurations, believe it or not, and they were trying to test how warm or comfortable the buses felt, and what was actually a very warm day actually. And we did have the embarrassing scene of an electric bus breaking down 100 yards from the entrance. But there you go, these things are sent to price. I did go back to take part in some e-scooter research, where I was buzzed by an e-scooter rider at different distances to gauge how comfortable I felt. So looking forward to see how the perception versus actual safety comes out on that one. Worth having a look to see what UCL are doing there. They're always looking for volunteers if you're fairly local, and they pay you a small fee for your time and effort. So in August, and this is right at the very end of August, actually, back in the Netherlands for my second trip. Now, this is an interesting street to me because back in 2017, when I last visited Amsterdam properly, I've done day trips, but not a proper stay there. Middenweg was somewhere I cycled up to, but I didn't quite get as far as here. This is an arterial road. It comes in from one of the motorways some distance down away from us as we're looking here. And there's so much going on in the photo. So let me try and point out a few things. The first thing to say is from about this point here, you can see kind of a little private threshold of the shops. But essentially, roughly at the thresholds on both sides, believe it or not, that's about 20 metres wide, which is narrow by anyone's thoughts of an arterial road. What they've also done here is they have obviously a footway on both sides with flow cycle tracks in each direction. They've also got 2 buffers, one wide, one narrow, and they do alternate along the whole section here, but they take in parking loading. You can just see a big bin there. There's cycle parking in the foreground, parking meter clutter. These red poles here are actually old lighting columns. And what they've done is in successive street upgrades, they've gone and strung the nice catenary lighting between the buildings. And at some point, they will take these out when they get round to it. So the Dutch aren't afraid of just leaving things in place for a while until budget allows them to upgrade something. The carriageway, two-way, they're about 3 metre lanes, so again, pretty tight. You can just see a tram coming towards us, so it's all shared there. But the reason it works is at the network level, the Dutch have obviously dealt with all the through traffic. This does feed part of a more inner ring road, so it can still be quite busy with traffic during the day. Go back there about 6:30 in the evening, and it was absolutely deserted. You can cross the road anywhere you like. And in fact, all the formal crossings away from the main junctions were just zebras. So a really, really hard working street there. Well worth having a look for yourselves up and down it. So as we're getting into the start of the autumn, I found myself in Hanwell, picking up a 30 quid piece of high bike history. And why not? It was just 30 quid, got me out the house. And this bike, at the time I was talking about it having everything. Mud guards, hub gears, adjustable saddle, little basket at the front, dynamo light in the front, solar light at the back, kickstand, little chain guard there to keep clothes clean. So, you know, it has lots of good stuff. Against it, maybe the solid tyres and just the sinking feeling you get after a couple of miles that you have to lift the saddle back up again because they're not great, but it's a good fun bike. Really handy just to nip to local shops and back without getting my other one out. So there you go. A little bit of fun, a little bit of history, and actually quite a bulletproof piece of kit there. Then in October, I was actually in Manchester for a conference, but I just had time on the day I arrived to nip down to Thetford to look at Kingsway, which is in the Trafford district, where they've just completely redesigned this, what was a dual carriageway with guardrail and everything else, down to more of a street, linked in with regeneration, but it's kind of got everything that we've come to expect now. We've got cycle tracks in each direction, floating bus stops, there's the floating loading and servicing way in the distance there, and lots of public realm. You can't see it in this particular photo, but you can look up the Kingsway lounges for a laugh, for something that's really upset the usual suspects. But a bit of care and attention to public realm. I did ask about the bus shelters having the blank back and sides there where the glass should be. Unfortunately, they've had lots of vandalism, and so they've had to replace it with something that's less easy to destroy, which is a big shame. So in November, I went to see the Norwich cycling campaign, had a little tour of the city, and just completely away from cycling, really. This is London Street in Norwich, which on the 17th of July 1967 became the UK's first shopping street re-pedestrianised. Some people might know of Alan Partridge and his opposition to pedestrianising Norwich city centre. How will you get deliveries to Dixon? Well, there you go. It's thriving. Obviously, the shops are still operating all those years later. And then finally, just last week, and where I may have picked up the cold on the train up to Coventry, just had time to go and have a look at some of the work in progress on the Binley cycleway, but also a revisit to the city end of it, just to see how these entrance curves are doing. The Cowden cycleway, the other side of the city, was the first place in the UK to use these. This was the second scheme to use them, and what a test bed right outside a petrol station with lots and lots of movements a day. I think they've been in for about 2.5, 3 years, and they're standing up extremely well, but no damage, no problems. So just to show we can import some of the Dutch to the UK quite successfully. And there we go. It's a Merry Christmas for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. I made that 9 goods, 1 bad and 2 interesting, which is
Something like
although two of the good ones were on the continent, so I don't know if they count. But and ending on a Dutch curve, which is always a good good thing. Adam, you've got a hand up.
That's an accidental hand up. Yeah.
Oh, it's an accidental
Back
hand
round.
up. Okay, right. Well, I shall round off the session, and I think a Dutch curve is a fine way to finish. Ruth, you've got a hand up.
I'm going to be really cheeky and ask Mark if he got my email as he asked me to send him an email.
Yes, but I haven't been working for the last few days, so yeah, hopefully back in circulation tomorrow, Ruth.
Okay, thank you very much. But
Okay.
awesome, as always. Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much to Dustin and Mark for their presentations. As Adam said earlier, we couldn't do it without the presenters. Thank you all for tuning in. If you come next week to Active Travel Cafe, you will be on your own because we don't have a session. We'll be broken up for Christmas. We will be back on the 14th of January and we will have a special guest from Active Travel England. That's all we're saying for now. And have a very good break. Have a very good, well, if you're having a break, get some active travel done when you're getting your presents in, getting your food in, or whatever, or just to get out of the house over the period, and have a very good start to 2025. And let's hope it's a good year for active travel. We could do with a bit of progress, couldn't we? Thank you very much.